Welcome to this session about designing better courses with HTML, Lumi, and H5P. At this point, I think I've met quite a few of you, but just in case this is your first time, my name is Anne-Sophie Pamel-Kahi. I have a very francophone name. My first name is Anne-Sophie, and that's what everyone calls me. I'm a bilingual trainer at D2L, so I offer trainings in English and French, and I work with administrators, with instructors, and we just go through workflows that people have to do on a daily basis. You may have met other people on my team. There's Craig Wormanek, there's Jacqueline Nellis, and Pop San Francis, who have been giving a lot of sessions this week. So we're all the trainers. Prior to being a trainer, I was an elementary school teacher, so that's where my background is, but I have been at D2L for almost 2 years now. The agenda for today, I'm going to start by showing you a course that it could probably be a course that's actually happening, but it just has Word documents and PowerPoints. So I've just uploaded those things. All the content is there, it just doesn't look the way that we probably want it to look. We'll talk about why it could be beneficial to redesign a course that's kind of in this situation. And we have 3 avenues that we're going to accomplish this with. We're going to start by creating HTML, so this will be our Brightspace pages. Then we'll take a look to see how Lumi comes into play. And we'll also talk about making things more interactive with H5P. Once we've gone through those 3 things, we will look back at that course to compare what are the differences now. So let's go take a look at this course. I'm just going to switch my screen over. I am already in content. If we look on this left-hand side, we can see that I have several units. I've got one called Course Introduction, and then after that, we're pretending that this is some sort of a course on Ontario owls. So every unit is on a different type of owl species. If I get into this first one, I just have an image here for the unit. This is the first module, which is a Word document. That is just being a little slow at loading. There we go. So it's just a Word document, and it's got a bunch of headings in it with different sections. There's an introduction in here, and then it gets into specific topics. If we look at the second part of the module, this one is just a PowerPoint, so same kind of an idea here. Really, all my content is here. We just want to make it a little bit more accessible, easier to maintain in the future, and we want to try to make it a bit more interactive. The third module I have in here is a quiz, so I even have a bunch of these quiz questions that are here, but again, this is just a Word document. Not very easy for a student or a learner to interact with at this time. So let's talk a little bit more about why we would want to redesign a course like this, because inevitably doing this is going to be quite time consuming. We have some strategies that we can use to make it a little bit faster, but I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It would take someone quite a big commitment to revamp this course. So why would we want to spend our time doing this? Well, for one, accessibility is huge. At this point, we are starting to see, I'm a little bit more familiar with how it works in Canada, but depending on where your institution is, there are more and more legal requirements to our online courses when it comes to accessibility. If you're familiar with our international WCAG accessibility standards, this is something I'll show you a little bit in a second, but it's this giant list of success criteria. And we have requirements now where we have to meet a certain majority of these success criteria to make sure that our courses are accessible to all. Really, we're aiming for the AA. There's the single A, double A, triple A. That's kind of where we want to be. If we are creating HTML for our Brightspace pages, this is a way for us to increase how accessible our course can be. One of the reasons for this is HTML is quite compatible with our screen readers. If I was someone with a visual impairment and I couldn't see what was happening on a screen, this would mean that I would download a software and it would read everything out for me. So if there was text, it would read out the text. If there were images, it would describe those images to me. HTML is built in such a way that it will be compatible with these softwares. And it's also a little bit easier for you to go in to make things accessible compared to if I have documents or something like a PDF. Those are essentially just images, and it can be quite difficult for a screen reader to pick up when there's text. So that's something to think about. Within Brightspace Pages as well, we have a tool that's called the Accessibility Checker. So if we are building these pages, we'll be able to click that button, and it's not foolproof, but it's a really good start to see, am I actually making this in such a way that it will be accessible and meeting that big list of success criteria. I do have a QR code that I will show you at the end of the session today, so if ever I'm mentioning a resource, it will be in this QR code at the end, so no need to furiously write notes or anything. These standards that I was mentioning, on this website, it details them all, and essentially it's just a big list. You can see them all on this left-hand side. 1.1 talks about text alternatives, so when you have to describe what's happening in an image, for instance. It could be really handy over time to learn more about these success criteria so that you understand what it is that you're being asked to do to make a course more accessible. Another reason why it could be very beneficial for especially the instructor or the course designer to revamp their course and start to create some of these HTML pages is because we want to have all of our course material in the same location. Anytime we need to do some maintenance, we need to add more, make updates, we only need to go to one spot, which is in Brightspace, to make those changes. Now, if you do have access to Lumi, this will make your life even easier because not only is everything in the same spot, but you can use AI to help you modify your content, to create more, create summaries. So we'll have a look to see how those tools come into play. I know that not everyone has access to Lumi. Just keep in mind that there are other AI tools you choose to use outside of Brightspace to do that revamping out there before you then bring it into Brightspace. So there's probably something for everyone in terms of how we can use AI. And then our third piece with H5P, this is how we can make things more interactive, more engaging, and to kind of break up the material into more manageable pieces. This tends to be more motivating for learners. It deals with a lot of gamification. It's very positive. There's a lot of immediate feedback, and we can create great items out of H5P as well. So let's start talking about HTML first. We have this concept that we can make what's called a Brightspace page. And this is going to be essentially me taking my content and putting it into something that looks a little bit like a document. But again, it's going to be a lot more accessible. And if I want to, and I know that we have a lot of administrators in the room, if I want to, I could create a template so that every time I'm getting started, I don't have to completely start from scratch. I can figure out, well, I need to have this banner or this branding, this logo. I want this color with this font size and these headings. And I can start with this every time, and I can just click a button to say, I want that template, and then I can just start putting in my content. So using these templates is great so we can have consistency for that style piece. Really great for consistency with our archaic standards. And we're saving a bit of time because we always have that starting point with our template. And then once we are actually building that page, this is when what we call our Brightspace editor really comes into play. And these are all of the buttons that you're going to want to use. Anything from selecting the color of the text, to adding H5P, to creating a list, just little things like that. We also have that accessibility checker button that will be available when we're creating that page. We're going to head in and we're going to start by creating one of these HTML templates, or really I'm going to modify one that I already have. Technically, all of you should have some already, so you could go in to modify yours anytime you need to. Then we will create a Brightspace page, bring in some of that content that we already have, and we'll do some checking to see if we are meeting some of these accessibility success criteria. So let me hop over to my instance. For my first step here, I actually don't really mind what course I'm in, because to deal with our HTML templates, most of the time this starts at the administrator level. So I'm heading into my admin tools, and I'm going to look up something called public files. If you are not an administrator right now, don't worry, because this is a conversation you can have with your administrators to get these set up for you, and then you can use them whenever you need them. I'm going to scroll down, and I'm looking for something called HTML template library. I probably have some older ones in here. Most people have V3 and V5. I'm going to click on V5. I have a few folders. I've got one called Pages for English and one Pages for French. I'll go into the English ones. And these are the ones that are in this instance. In yours, they will probably be a little bit different. If I click on the arrow for this basic one, I will be able to go and edit. So we'll see in here that we have this stock image at the top, so anytime I'm using this template, I'm going to have this image. This is something we can switch out for something else. We have some headings, some text, we have specific colors. These are all things I can alter depending on what it is that I need to do. I'm going to essentially set this up with what I want someone to see when they're starting at the beginning, when they're making a page. We have this toolbar at the top, which is what we call our Brightspace editor, and this is how I can make all of my little changes. We have a button here called Select Color, so I can decide exactly what color my text is going to be. We have this one here that says Paragraph, and it has all of the headings, so I can figure out exactly what types of headings I'm going to need. We'll talk about these a little bit more later, but they have a lot to do with accessibility, more than you'd think. And we have this button here in case we ever need to insert an image of any kind. So lots of opportunities here. And of course, once I'm done and I'm happy, I'm going to save this. Now by default, our courses, the way they're made, is that the button that says HTML templates is linked with a path to a specific folder. In this instance that I'm working in right now, that location is the folder called HTML template library. There is a way for you to change this path so that if, depending on the department or the course or whatever it is, if you need them to have a different list, you can create a different one in different locations. This is something that can be controlled in config variables. I won't bore you for too long with this, but essentially once you come into the config variable browser, if you go into Tools, and then into Content, you are first going to find the one called Enable HTML Templates, and you're just going to add the courses that you need to essentially alter the path. And there is a separate config variable called Template Path so that you can say precisely, I need you to pull from this folder. I know there are some situations where you need the templates to always be the same, and then sometimes they need to be different depending on different departments or programs or something like this. Now, once all of this is ready to go, you will be able to go into a course and use these templates and start to create these Brightspace pages. I'm going to use my course selector to go into the course that we were looking at earlier. So I'm heading into Content. And let's say I would like to, I have this Word document that I would like to switch over into a Brightspace page. So I'm just selecting the unit that I want this page to end up in. I'm going to click Create New, and then I will select Page, and I'll give it an appropriate title. I'll keep it very, it's not going to be super duper specific for now. I'll call it Module 1, Part 1. And we can see here, this is our Select Template button. All of those templates that you would have edited under Public Files are going to show up here, and you would pick the appropriate one. I'm going to select this one. And let me just make this full screen so you can see what this template looks like. So I've got a stock image already. I've got all the colors I want, the headings that I need, and all of those pieces to make sure that I am set up for success, and I just need to essentially plug in the content that I already have. I've got this Word document open already, and I'm just going to copy and paste a little bit into here so that we can see what that looks like. Got my title there, and then I'll do this introduction one. I feel like I used the wrong title, but it doesn't really matter that much. Now, I've had experiences where sometimes if I'm doing the copying and pasting, it could make some slight changes to my formatting, but it's nothing that you can't really just go in quickly to resolve. But the formatting that we initially had for this heading and for this regular paragraph text is exactly what we set up in the HTML template previously. So just like that, when I have a template, yes, of course, I need to go through the trouble of doing the copying and pasting, which obviously takes a lot of time, but it takes a lot less time than it would have if I needed to do this completely from scratch. If I realize that I've run out of headings up here and I need to essentially create some more, then I can come up where it says paragraph, and then these are all the headings I can choose from. And if you're not familiar with these, the reason why there are so many is because of our screen readers. If I'm someone who's visually impaired, I'm listening to the text and it will tell me heading level 1, and then it'll read me the heading. If it says heading level 2, that is my clue that this is a subheading under heading 1. Obviously, visually, that's something I could see because they usually get a little bit smaller, but someone on a screen reader can't see that. So we need to pick the appropriate heading from here so that Brightspace can tell the screen reader which heading it is. Now, this concept of clicking the right button so that it is informing a screen reader is a very common thing that happens. I'll give you an example. If I want to make a bulleted list, maybe I'm just going to start writing this out like this. Visually, this kind of looks like a list, but it is not enough for a screen reader to be 100% sure that it is. This is why we need to use the actual list button, which is right up here. And we'll choose bullets or numbers, and then we have that here. If I didn't do that, let's say it's back to what it was before, let me click on that accessibility checker to show you what happens when I get an error. So here it is, it's the little stick figure with the circle around it. It's letting me know the selected text appears to be a list. List should be formatted using a list tag. So that means I would need to come in, click that list button. I'll remove the dashes that I used. And then if I click again, now it's letting me know that everything is meeting our standards. What happens when someone's listening to that screen reader is it usually will say list, and then it says the title of the list, and then it will say how many items it has. I don't even have a title for this one, but say the title and then 3 items, and then it will list those items. So this is kind of the concept of how we're going about building. We're going to specify by clicking on one of the buttons at the top in our Brightspace editor, so we are making sure that that screen reader can properly pick it up, and periodically you can come over and check to see if you have any errors. If you do, there's always a link so that you can go and open a new tab to find out more information. We're going to say that I'm done. This is all that I need to do for this page. So as usual, I would make this visible and I would click Save and Close. We can now go and compare to see the difference so far. I'm just going to move this one so it's underneath the first version that we had. So this is what we had before, which again is an image. It's probably something that a screen reader would have difficulty reading. And we're transitioning to this one, which stylistically already looks a little bit better. We have the same content, and now we know for sure that this is something that anyone will be able to access. Does anyone have any questions so far about HTML, making the templates, the pages? Yes.
So like, see, I'm a full-timer at online, but also am for a little extra money, I'm an adjunct instructor here at the college. They have recently adopted D2Up. So I have, for my my full-time position, I use templates and all that other good stuff, right? Now, say I want to use those same templates at the other institution, but they don't have those activated.
Oh, yeah.
And are we gonna run into problems with that, or?
Just to confirm, these are two separate instances?
Yeah.
So what I would say, if we go back to public files for a second, I'm just gonna head into that spot where my templates were. I do have a download button. So maybe if you were to download the ones that you know you want, that would go on your computer, and then when you get into the appropriate folder in the other instance, you can upload.
Okay.
So I think that would probably be the easiest way. Great question. Let me head back to where we were. Step 2, what about now? I've got all my, well, it depends. There's sort of 2 reasons why I would want to use Lumi here. Maybe I'm trying to accomplish the same thing here, that I've got a bunch of content, and I don't want to go through the trouble of copying and pasting everything into Brightspace pages, because that takes a long time. Lumi can help us do this a little bit faster, so that's one thing. Or maybe at this point, I have those Brightspace pages, but I'm looking to make them better. Now, this applies to me now, but it also applies to me anytime in the future where I realize that I'm trying to reach a different audience, or now this course is being offered in French and I need to translate this. So there's a lot of reasons why I would need to modify something in the future. We'll take a look at both, just so that we're very clear on the specific parts of Lumi that I am talking about right now. I'm focusing in just on content. We've got Lumi content, which is when I want to generate a unit from pre-existing content. This is to make the process a bit faster compared to what we just did. You will still need to make your HTML templates first, but once that's done, then you can use Lumi. We've got Lumi Remix, which is that modification time. So anything from changing text complexity to language to whatever else we're going to need. And we also have Lumi Summary, which is when I've got everything I want in my unit. And now at the top of that unit, I just would like to have a blurb that's going to tell the learner exactly what it is that we're going to be learning in this unit. So 3 pieces to this. We're going to start first with the create a unit. So I'm going to take a document and then I'm going to take a PowerPoint. And then we'll do the remix so you can see that modification piece, and then we'll make a summary. To create this unit with Lumi, I'm going to click New Unit at the top, and I'm looking for the sparkles, so I will generate unit from file. You'll notice that you have 2 choices. We have the import pre-written unit and then generate unit from a presentation. Option 1 specifically wants a Word document. It's not going to accept anything else. Unfortunately, if I have PDFs, that's not going to work here. Option 2 is just a PowerPoint. You'll notice it does specify exactly the maximum size I can put into here too. So if I'm using that first one, I'm just going to go and browse for what it is that I need here. Bear with me for just a moment. So I've chosen my document. Oh, I need to close that document first because it won't let me use it. There we are, so there's my document. I'm going to review unit structure. Now in this step, what it's going to do is it's looking at all the content I have, and it's going to figure out how many pages I need. It's going to give me a unit at the top, and then those pages, and I can review exactly what these are. It has come up with a unit called Snowy Owl, which that makes sense. And it's come up with 14 activities, so 14 pages or content topics, if you will. These may not be perfect. I may need to make modifications to these afterwards, but again, we're looking to just speed up the process right now. If there's something that right off the bat I'm realizing I don't want that, then I'm just going to select the other ones and not the ones I don't want. Here, I'm going to select everything because I would like to select what template I want them to use. Right now, I'm kind of just picking in bulk. So I'm going to say that I want all of these to have the basic OWL template, which is the one that we were looking at earlier. So I will select, and now every single one of these pages has this template attached to it, very fast. If I realize, you know what, maybe the learning outcomes one needs to have a different template, no problem. I can come into the pencil and I can change the template. So I can do it in bulk, or I can pick individual ones for each page. There is a garbage can in here if I realize that I don't want this one at all. And then I will click generate. It is once you click generate that it is using those Lumi credits, or what we call generations, because we all have different limits of how many times we can use Lumi. I will proceed to content. If you are concerned that you feel like you don't have that many generations, the actions that I'm performing right now, they use a lot of generations. So if that's like a strategy that you have in mind right now, maybe don't generate a unit with Lumi, but you can do some other things instead. So now here in my table of contents, we can see the unit and we can see all of these pages that were created. We've got the one called Module 1. We can see that template has been applied. This one here is the learning objectives. I didn't have to do any copying and pasting. Now again, this might not be perfect. We can see that I've kind of got a duplicate situation, but it's not a big deal. I can just delete some things. My introduction, and essentially it just goes on. You'll notice that we have this symbol that probably looks familiar, but it's not totally the same as usual. I have my eye that's crossed out, which lets me know that this is hidden, plus the sparkles. Essentially what this means is anytime we're using Lumi, we're going to be forced to review. We review because we need a human being checking to make sure that AI did its job properly. And this isn't really coming from a spot of like a trust problem. It's just that at this time, AI cannot use common sense. We have to be the common sense people. So we're gonna go in to make sure there's no inconsistencies, there's no errors. It really just works on probability, and sometimes it gets probability wrong. Sometimes that will just look like a little error that's not a big deal, but because it doesn't know how big of an error something could be, there could accidentally be something that could be inappropriate, could be something. I've seen one time a racial stereotype came up, and it was just a fluke. But only a human being could see that this was problematic in the situation. So I'm not telling you this to scare you, but it's just to say review everything that AI makes, because we never know what it can come up with, because it's all based on probability. To review, I'm going to click my 3 dots and I'm going to go into edit. So what's nice about this is that if I notice something I need to change, I can just do it right now, because I'm in the same place we were when we were building a page before. And then when I'm happy, I'm going to click Review AI Content, set as reviewed. Essentially, I've done my job, and now I can make this visible just like I usually can. It's that one extra step just to prove that we did actually review the thing we were supposed to review.
Do you need to do that, or just a good chat?
No, it's okay. Like, do you mean, do I need to click the review button?
Yes.
Yeah, you don't have a choice. It will prevent you from making it visible. Yeah.
I think it's good.
Yeah.
It surprised me.
No, I totally get it. So yeah, most of the time it will totally stop you from making it visible until it forces you to look at it. Yeah. That's also why you can't really do it in bulk, because you won't be actually looking at it. Yeah, go ahead.
So it looks like they took a bunch of the sections of the Word file and basically made different pages. What if you wanted all that to be on one page?
At this time, that's not something that you can ask Lumi content to do. When I say that, I mean the unit button. You may have a little bit more flexibility with the remix button afterwards, but at this time, it kind of just spits out what it wants to spit out. We don't have that much control.
So could you just import all as one format? It would do one page and then just kind of go into the page and reformat
Yes.
it manually?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, if I had a PowerPoint presentation, it's really, really similar, so I'm not gonna do the whole thing, but essentially we would pick the other option, we would plug in our PowerPoint, and then we would follow the same process. We'd pick those templates, and then it would create. Did you have a question?
And I don't need to stop moving forward.
That's okay.
On the review portion, is there a way to configure access to D2L to where someone can have just review and approval access?
Oh.
I don't need my faculty coming in and making changes after I built something.
I totally see what you're saying. I think unfortunately at this time, the permissions are not separate like that.
Okay.
So I think if you have access to doing the reviewing, you'll have access to other things that you don't want them to have access to, unfortunately. I feel like that could be a pie item maybe, just to, in the future, something that we may want to have. All right, so let's say we do the PowerPoint thing. Like I said, it's exactly the same process. Our next step here is to do our remix. So this is, we're looking at what we have. Maybe we just made it. Maybe we made it last year and we want it to be better. We want it to be different. We're going to go in and we're going to give instructions for how we want this to change. So for this one, I'm going to go into the specific page that I would like to make changes to. I'm just picking this one here. I'm going to click those three dots and click edit. And then I'm looking for modify with AI. And I've got a couple options here. Option one, maybe I'm looking for this to be written more simply or in a more difficult way. So that's a really easy one to just plug in. And then we have our custom instructions, and this is where really we have a lot of flexibility. So this is where I could say, I want this in French, or take this paragraph and make it a table. If you have access to Creator Plus, you can also ask for it to create Creator Plus elements for you. Again, just to make sure that this is in manageable pieces, it's a little bit more interactive. You can really play around to see what it is that you like and what you need. We're going to say that I will decrease the text complexity. I'm going to say translate the text into French, and I will apply Creator Plus elements, and then I will click generate. Once again, it's going to force me to review to make sure that I'm accepting all of these changes, and I'll have two choices. I can either say just replace the page I had before with this one, or I'm going to keep that original and make a duplicate with these new changes, and then you'll have both. So then you can decide if you need to delete that other one later, then that's fine. And we can see those buttons already. This one says save new page, and this one says replace page. So the replace means it will delete that original that we had before. While we're waiting for this one to generate, perfect.
Yeah, when it comes to prompting, is less more? Do you want to be more descriptive? How do you do the work?
I think usually with any AI, more is better because, again, probability. If you give it any space to make its own assumptions, it can make those assumptions incorrectly. Really good question. We're still generating. Yes.
All right, so you created something with a Word document and you use it with PowerPoint. Now I have a few soft chalk lessons that I want to migrate over to D12. Could I use Lumi to do that?
What type of file are those?
I think it's HTML.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay. Unfortunately, when you're using that create a unit, it will only take a Word document or a PowerPoint right now. So you'll need to convert them first. If you're finding that tricky, I would see if you could find an AI tool, just like you could use a free one and just see if it can convert it for you. Everyone has such great questions. Okay, so this is our preview of the changes that we have. Oh, how interesting. It didn't translate for me. Huh. Well, that's embarrassing. I've seen it do it before. I'm not really sure what happened there, but it did create some Creator Plus elements. So we can see this one here that's in a box, that's a call out. We've got this here, which is accordion. So it did one of the things that I talked about. Now, I have no reason to believe that I can't ask two things at the same time. I feel like the next thing I would try is maybe save this one and then try again and only ask for the translation. Maybe I'm just coming up with some weird problem or something like that. Maybe I tried to do too many things at once. Sorry, go again. Oh, thanks, that's so nice. So I'm going to save this page. And then this is essentially saying, this is going to create a new page. I still have that original, and visibility will be set to hidden and not reviewed. So we'll need to do that review process that we did before. So we could see that. Actually, I apologize. It says that it is reviewed, so it's set to visible. It's all ready to go. And then I'll click save. No, that's not true, because it brought me back to that original one. I had it right the first time. So that's the original, and then at the bottom, here's the new copy that I have, and I do need to review it and set it to visible. Now, the third thing that we can potentially do in content here is when I'm happy with everything I have in my unit, I can come back up to my unit title, and I can ask Lumi to make a summary for me. Now, if I have a mix of English and French in here, I've got no guarantees what language this will come out as, but obviously you won't do that. If I click my three dots and then my edit button, I will have this button. And just to clarify, when I'm doing the remix or the summary, this button doesn't exist when I'm creating the page for the first time or creating the unit for the first time. They need to exist already, and then I need to come back in. So I'm going to say one of two things. Either I'm going to include all the activities of this unit, or maybe I'm going to select. It's important to note that if I'm selecting, the unit summary will be based off of the first 5,000 characters. So if you feel like that's problematic for you, then maybe be a bit more selective in the ones that you want to have it based on. I'll keep it simple. I'll say that I want it based on everything, and in either case, I can go into edit that source text, and if there's anything I want to delete or change, I can. So I will say update, and then generate. And with these summaries, it always gives you three options. It'll give you one from the learner's perspective, so it will say, I will learn blah, blah, blah. And then we have the instructor's perspective, you will learn blah, blah, blah. And then, so we can see them here, I will, you will. And then the third one is a little bit more in the third person, if you will, and it's always a little bit longer. You can read the three, decide the one that you want to use. That is kind of assuming you reviewed it already, so we can see that the review status is already set, and I just need to make this visible. So now we can see when we're clicking on that unit, we have that summary that was just created. Any other questions about Lumi? Yes.
So this, I feel a little silly, but we don't have Lumi in the institution, so it might not be Lumi. I see that in the content experience and you don't have the little colored bars. Is that because it's Lumi, or is that because you set some settings that remove the colored bars?
Oh, do you mean on this left-hand side that there's no colors? Yeah, so that's probably the specific type of view. Yeah, it's called inline. And I wonder as well if maybe they've just been set to be white.
We use our inline, but you can set it to white so it's not colored. Because we have instructors getting really bothered by those colors.
Okay. Yeah, what I do know is when you have the newest part of the new content experience, the one that's called immersive, you can control the colors when you're using that one. So I wonder if that's what happened. Because all my colleagues and I, we've been using some of the same courses, we're all in the same instance, and some people have been training on that new immersive experience, so I wonder if that's what's going on.
And is the new immersive experience is a config variable?
Yes.
And it's not coming at an extra cost, is that correct?
No, I don't believe it is. No. And the idea is that it just kind of puts that table of contents in the middle.
And you can also collapse it with that one?
What do you mean by collapse?
Like, you know how like in the classic content experience, you can just see the content?
Oh,
and you
yes.
don't have to always see the table of
So yeah, I'm thinking that's what's happening with the colors. So it's probably just one of my other colleagues made a change without me knowing. We're getting a little short on time. So I'm gonna spend as much time as I can on H5P, but just remember, we've got that QR code at the end, and I have so many H5P resources. So at least we'll be leaving with that today. We've got our pages, whatever method we use to create them. Now, I want to make it a bit more interesting. So I'm going to use something called H5P, which is essentially, if you will, little mini games that I could pepper into my Brightspace pages. This is a complex one. So this is a beast that takes a long time to make. It's called the game map. It's very cool, but it takes a long time. We don't necessarily need to do very complex ones. We can do really simple ones like a single multiple choice question. And then you put it in the spot where you want it to be. Your learner will complete it, and if I want to, it can be a grade item as well. So these are really helpful to chunk that experience of the module. It's more interactive and engaging, and it also helps the learner have opportunities to do little learning checks and reflect to see, am I actually understanding what's going on? So we're going to go in and create the one that's called question set. It's kind of like a quiz, and I will have full control over how many questions will be included in this, and this one would be super appropriate to have as a grade item. I'm just going to go into one of these pages. I'll go into that same original one. And then same thing, I'm always doing the same thing. I'm going into edit. And I'm just going to put my cursor where I want this to end up. I'll put it right at the bottom. I'm looking for my Creator Plus Authoring Tools button. And then H5P Interactives. We have the full list here of all the interactives that we can build. Feel free to use this list. I feel like I never do because I might be doing all sorts of things in H5P and I'd rather have all my buttons at the same time. Like, what if I already built something and I just want to reinsert it? Or I'm building something new, I'm using AI or whatever it is. So I prefer to click this button because it brings me to H5P, which is a separate website. So right now I'm kind of in H5P right now in my account. I can add content, which means build from scratch. Smart Import is making interactives using AI. These are all the interactives I've built in the past, and you can see I can just insert them again. Even if I built them last year, it doesn't matter. They're all saved under my account in the same place. And then if I have a colleague that shared something with me, I could go in to see those ones, and I could insert something that a colleague made instead. But I digress. Let's head into add content. And we are going to look up question set. There we go. I pressed enter and it just automatically knew the one I wanted, but usually you have to select it. So we're always going to have to give the H5P Interactive a name because it does save itself in your account and you want to see all of these together, and it's a lot easier if you know exactly the one that it's supposed to be. I'm going to call it Snowy Owl Question Set. We have a lot of customization capability in H5P, what things look like, what buttons the person is going to see. It's a lot. You don't necessarily have to click everything the first time. The progress indicator, if I'm using dots or if it's going to be textual, it doesn't make a huge difference. So I'm not going to spend so much time on a lot of these buttons. The pass percentage, we're going to say that the person needs to get 80%. And then down here, this is where I can add my questions for my quiz. So the first one here, we're going to say that it's multiple choice. I will have to give this a title as well. And we all know how to make a multiple choice. We need a question and we need some options. Bear with me. I'm just going to copy and paste a question. Why can snowy owls be active during the day in the Arctic? And then I've got some options. I don't necessarily need to have a specific number. By default, it'll give me 2. So I'm saying they dislike darkness, and then the right answer is Arctic summers have continuous daylight. That's the correct answer. So I'm making sure to click that little box.
Where are you getting those questions from?
I made them.
So you have them, you just made them already.
Yeah. I'm coming over to my notes here and I'm just copying. This is no longer
We
voice
figure out what
space.
we were working on.
Yeah, no, it's fair enough. I keep flipping everywhere. If you want to add feedback to your options, you can totally do that. And every question is going to have behavioral settings, and these ones are really nice to come into. So right now, by default, this question, there will be a retry button, so the person can retry the question as many times as they want. And they can also click a button to see the solution. So if I want to turn those off, I totally can. And then I would come back up to the top, and I can add another question, and I can have as many questions in this question set as I want. Once all of that's done, we're going to come to the bottom, and again, we've got more behavioral settings that are not specific to a question, they're just specific to the entire question set that I have going on. So do I want to have a check button that they need to click on? Do I want to override the show solution button, essentially turning it off for all questions at the same time so I don't need to waste my time turning it off for each question? Stuff like that. In this bottom menu here, I'm going to make sure to come into the last one that says LTI settings. And here's where I decide, is this a grade item or not? Do not send score means it will not be a grade item. Otherwise, I can pick whatever option I want, and we'll say that we're saving the best attempt. I will save and insert. I'll get a preview, and then I will insert. And then it asks me a question. Do you want to make this grade item right now, or do you want to skip it for now, and it will get created the first time that a student goes in to complete this? Personally, I like to do it now because I want to go in to make sure all the settings are right for the grade item, but that's really up to the person. So now I'll come out of this full screen, I will save and close, and we'll be able to see this update that I've made to this Brightspace page. They're doing their reading, and then when they get to the bottom, here's their question set. We only have one question right now, but I could have kept going and I could have added a bunch. And then when the person is done answering all of this, they would click submit, and that goes right to the grade book. You get reports about this activity, you get those grades, obviously, and it's a lot more interactive in the process of someone doing their learning. And we've already taken a look at that final result. So I will leave you with my QR code. This has my slideshow, and it has a bunch of resources about HTML, accessibility, Lumi, and H5P. Does anyone else have any questions? Yes.
So like with Lumi and H5P, my college has yet to switch over to the new content experience. Will it work with the classic experience?
To my understanding, Lumi does not. H5P does. Great question. Yes.
So, H5P, is there a way, let's say I have a question about it. Is there a way we can put like CSV files with specific formats? Let's say I have like 20 questions.
Yeah.
And do them one by one.
Not in the way that you would want. What I would recommend, and I wish I could tell you a better answer, but what I would recommend, I can show you really quickly. When you're in H5P, when you click on Smart Imports, this is the AI functionality, and you can upload text or a document, a video, a website, and it will pull from that, like it pulls all of that text, and it can make interactives for you. It can't make every interactive, but it can make about 15 of them. So I feel like I would try to do that first and see what you think. Otherwise, unfortunately, you will just have to do